For cruisers, the Panama Canal is really very special. It represents an enormous milestone towards a goal of sailing around the world. Boats participating in the Grand Large Yachting Round the World Rally are now gathered at Shelter Bay in preparation for crossing the Panama Canal. Follow along with us as we take you through the Panama Canal. We're going to cross in two groups on 2 different days, and BioTrek is part of the first group. This is a very special crossing because we are going to be the largest raft of boats ever to cross through the Panama Canal. That is largest by the width of the raft. In our raft, 3 different catamarans, the total width of over 90 feet, and the canal is only 110 feet wide. Pleasure craft use a different system, as we're going to see when we cross through the canal. So rather than being attached to the trains, we use ropes, and the smaller boats are attached into rafts that travel together as they go through the lock system. The canal is also one of the great engineering feats of the modern world, with a rich history and lessons learned in medicine, in politics, and in the creation of new countries. Crossing the canal takes a fair bit of preparation. Each boat must have 4 line handlers, a captain, and they must have an advisor on board. Line handlers are anyone over the age of 18 who's competent to handle the lines. So on BioTrek, our 4 line handlers were me and Mia, our new crew you're going to meet in various videos, Gonzalo, a friend from Panama, and we had James from Acora, who wanted to get the experience of traveling through the canal before he did it himself in his own boat the following day. So all the boats waiting for the pilot to come on board. And on Vitia, they're having a little swim. Rain is coming. It's coming right for us. Meet Ricardo, our advisor. Heading towards the Gatun Locks, we're going to raft up with our pre-assigned boats. And the Gatun Locks are a set of 3 locks. We'll stay rafted for the full 3 locks. And then we will break for the night, where we'll be in Gatun Lake, and we'll have another raft attached to a buoy. And the following day we'll go through Gatun Lake, then through the Pedro Miguel Locks, and finally through the Miraflores Locks before arriving in the Pacific Ocean. It's a 50-mile journey with 1.9 mile of locks.
Hello! 5:40.
All right.
So, probably gonna be more like 6 o'clock before we get here.
These locks are the original locks that were built and first opened in 1914.
Okay, all the 3 boats, reverse. Pick up this lock of the stern ice. Estaba llamando para las asignaciones, ¿verdad?
Just in the containers at the top, because it's already gone down, so we're going up.
Position. You ready? Let's go in 4 lines. Stop. Let's go. Neutral, Dom. Thank you. Neutral. Captain Fort. Okay, there we go. Raise your lines a little bit so the lines don't tangle with the wall when you're popping. Okay, everybody, reverse. Yeah, Dominic, reverse. Petey, reverse too. Everybody stop, stay here. Okay, stay those lines.
I felt a little bit guilty about the girls having to do all the lines when I'm standing here, but as you pointed out, I'm getting to understand how it's done in the central boat, which is where I'm going to be, so that'll be good, be useful.
They're having the same trouble as us. There's a strong Culebra over there pushing us away.
Far enough forward, I guess.
Captain, ease up your RPMs. Help me out a little bit with the stern. Yeah? Yeah, back. Yeah. So we don't have to use too much pressure on the RPM. Because we don't have that current that we had in the last one. Okay, Mr. Black. More power, Captain. More power. Thank you, sir. Splatter on. Keep it like that. We have a lot of space. Just as you do. Right? Once we're getting close to one side, the only way to lift that guy is, get away. Háblame, Rómulo. Captain. More power, Captain. More power. Follow in. Okay, Captain Tower. Steady as she goes. Neutral, Captain. Next thing will be stop. Okay, here we go, guys. Reverse, everybody. More power in here. Having a lot of fun. Dale, slack! Rafa! Slack! Allá. 1 y 4.
Are you ready for it, James?
I'm really very, very ready, but I'm quite glad to have gone through the first time too, to see what's going on. It's really good. I'm looking forward to doing it twice.
As you can see, the central boat has the work of guiding the raft, and the 2 side boats have the work of managing the lines.
So will you actually...
We're going out of the last lock for tonight. What's going on, eh? Last lock for tonight.
Oye, avante.
Gatun Lake. Here we come.
After we entered Gatun Lake, we denested the rafts, and then we tied in a different organization to the mooring balls. For a long day, we all went to bed early. The next morning, Gonzalo went up the mast to have a look around and to detangle the flags. Ricardo, our advisor, was scheduled to be back at 9 o'clock in the morning after having left at about 9 o'clock last night. I have to hold on to something.
Ah, okay.
Not that! That's not
I was
going up.
enjoying the ride.
You can hold this, but now it's a little bit late. But hold the diamond. It's a nice strong place. Yeah.
Not that, yeah, the wire. You hold the wire.
Right.
And you'll put your legs a little bit around the mast, just your feet on the mast. As we travel through Lake Gatun, I'll give you a little bit of the history of the Panama Canal. France was the first country to try and build the canal. It was a 19th century disaster that led to the financial collapse in France and the loss of confidence that it could even be built. All of this caused by one man with an outsized ego, continually and convincingly lying, and who refused to listen to the engineers who said a single level path to the sea could not be built, and to medical experts who understood the control of malaria and yellow fever would be essential to the successfully building the canal. This man was Ferdinand de Lesseps, who had said, "Faithful to my path, when they try to stop me, I go on." He had built the Suez Canal and thought he was infallible. Lesseps lied to the people of France about the progress being made in Panama. There was an excursion by Director General Boyer and a team of engineers. Almost all of them died or were sick before returning to France. And indeed, Boyer died of yellow fever before returning to France. But they wrote notes saying a level passage would never work. Other delegations had the same conclusion. But Lesseps would not hear of it and held out for false hope until the Great Canal crash, where 800,000 French men and women lost their life savings. So how did America get involved? Well, first Roosevelt, then Governor of York, played a large role and continued to see it through when he became president. And the lobbyists. Yes, this was a time when lobbying was shown to be extremely effective. Popular opinion was that the canal should be built in Nicaragua. But France wanted to see its assets recouped, and it was lobbying the United States to build the canal in Panama. Why was popular opinion for Nicaragua? Well, one, it would be a truly American effort and not part of the French project. And it was felt that to buy the Panama Canal would be buying a revolution. The Colombian government said they'd be cooperative, but Panama was always a difficult place to govern. The general inventory was provided to Americans by the French, and it was remarkable. Detailed maps, geological profiles, reports of borings, plans for dam sites, plans for locks. There were powerful men and lobbyists on both positions of Panama versus Nicaragua for the canal. President McKinley said Congress would decide. The main argument for those wanting Panama were technical, which had no appeal to the layman. So the lobbyists came up with the idea with mentioning volcanoes because Nicaragua had tons of volcanoes. That may not have been sufficient to sway Congress, except for the eruption of Mont Pelee in Martinique in 1902. This supposedly dormant volcano erupted and killed 30,000 people. Had Mount Pelee not erupted at that time in 1902, then USA probably would have built a canal in Nicaragua, leaving the region of Panama to be bought by another world power. Manuel Amador was an engineer instrumental in creating Panama as a separate country. Amador and his conspirators heard news that Colombia was sending ships to squash a revolution, and they encouraged America to send a ship to the region. The Americans had not agreed to participate in the coup, but their presence was enough to turn the tide. The American public thought Roosevelt had actually played a role in the revolt, and newspapers were full of story of his act as sordid conquest. During a speech some years later, Roosevelt said, "The Panama crisis came at a period when I could act unhampered. Accordingly, I took the isthmus, started the canal, and left Congress not to debate the canal, but to debate me." Theodore Roosevelt is largely credited with building the Panama Canal, but it was built over the time of 3 different presidents. So what did Roosevelt do to get that credit? First, he was the one that advocated the choice of the route of Panama rather than Nicaragua. He was also the leader when there was the creation of the independent country of Panama. And one of the main acts that he did was the defense of Dr. Yorgis, who believed, based on science and research, that yellow fever and malaria were caused by mosquitoes carrying the pathogens. And he supported Yorgis in the eradication of mosquitoes. It wasn't that yellow fever killed so many people, it's that it caused a lot of fear. The first stages of the disease are typical of any disease: fever, nausea, vomiting. But about 15% of people would follow on to have bleeding from their mouth, nose, ears, and then die. More people died of tuberculosis, malaria, pneumonia. But it was yellow fever that caused such a problem in Panama. One quote said, "To rid Panama of yellow fever would be to rid it of fear." Now, yellow fever is caused by a virus carried by mosquitoes. In order to transmit the virus, the mosquito must bite the person within 3 days. So there tended to be isolated outbreaks within pockets of the population living closely together. When Dr. Yorgis came on board, he set up isolation wards so that in the hospitals treating yellow fever, the patients could not end as hotbeds to continually carry the disease. When the Americans started to build the canal, Roosevelt was the first president to ever leave the U.S. during his time in office. During his visit, he walked unannounced into an employee mess hall and ate with them, missing an elaborate dinner that had been planned. And no one had ever seen so much in so little time. He walked the railroad ties to Culebra Cut. In a famous moment, he had the train stop. He got off the train, slopped through the mud, and got onto a steam shovel and sat in the driver's seat. He was wearing a Panama hat and a white suit, and the photographers went wild because of his open delight of the moment. The engineer, largely credited with building the Panama Canal, was Stevens. This was an engineer who was not afraid of difficult conditions. He had worked on building railroads through swamps, through Canadian blizzards, and he said the Panama Canal was a railroad problem, was setting up the system that allowed the digging of the Culebra Cut. And by supporting Dr. Yorgis, he was able to triple the labor force and stop the bleed of workers and stop the death from yellow fever and from malaria. By 1906, there were 24,000 men from every part of the world, from 97 countries, working on the Panama Canal. Stevens is quoted as saying, "There's no mystery involved. The problem is simply one of magnitude and not of miracles." He's the one who decided the Chagres Dam should be at Gatun, and the elevation of the lake would be 85 feet. The project to create Gatun Lake turned 164 square miles of jungle into a lake. That's an area as large as Barbados. Stevens abruptly resigned after sending a letter to Roosevelt and before the locks were built. All indications were that he simply had what we would in modern times call burnout. Roosevelt appointed Goethals from the Army of Engineers. He was not popular like Stevens, but gained respect by treating people with respect. He listened attentively to their complaints. He published a canal newspaper with data from the different digging teams, and that set up a competitive spirit. He divided responsibility into 3 regions: the Atlantic Division, the Pacific Division, and the Central Division. And the Central Division included the Culebra Cut, which has now been renamed the Gaillard Cut. So Gaillard was responsible for Culebra Cut, and this was a massive effort. The dirt excavated from the Culebra Cut was equivalent to a New York City blot filled with dirt would be 19 miles high in the air. Not only was the excavation required, but Panama is a rainy country, and there were continuous mudslides. All the dirt and rocks were removed by trains on rails.
We're just coming into the Culebra Cut, most famous hill called Gold Hill, the terraced hill on the left, just before the Centennial Bridge.
Your Gold Hill, can I get it on camera?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well, what we're seeing up ahead is called Gold Hill, and it was named after a little part of the history of the canal where the French told most of the South Africans that they be digging in the canal, the Chinese and mostly the people coming up from the islands in the Caribbean, that there was gold in that area. And whatever they find, they can keep it. So they spend 24 hours a day, 365 days digging non-stop, trying to find gold, but never finding anything. So we kept the name Gold Hill, that area we're looking over there.
Mia was driving the boat, so she's eating late. Everything else is finished.
Finito.
Tiller taking in the smells, hoping that Mia's going to drop something on the floor. Just
only if you're lucky.
Wishing.
Wait.
Yay! We're almost
I'm waiting for the Bridge of the Americas.
Oh yeah, and I suggest you take a good picture of it and really good video, because we're building a new one, and that new one is gonna tear the other one down. Yeah.
Really?
So I believe maybe it's a project, a long-term project of probably 10 years, maybe more. But yeah, it's already approved.
We're gonna get some waves. Waiting for the locks.
Three. 25%.
That ship has 3 tugboats, one on each side and one on the stern.
Oh yeah, because he's heading to the new locks. So he goes inside the new locks with a tuck in the bow and a tuck in the stern with 2 long lines. And that's what he used for steering, braking, or moving towards the locks.
So the new locks don't have the trains? Or
No, they don't have the trains. That's why he needed 2 tucks, one forward and one aft. And when he is in position, the 2 tucks will get in angle like this, 45, and will bring the ship alongside. And when she's alongside, she sends her own cables, hawsers, secures to the borders, and she's the one slacking the lines or coiling in the lines as she rises or goes down in the locks. That's the process in the new locks, different than the other ones.
Yeah. So we're getting ready for nesting.
Hey, Gonzalo, ¿cómo estás? Bien. Keep it steady, Kathy. Keep it steady. I'm going to maneuver. Keep it steady. Keep it steady. You coming to me?
Get your teeth ready.
As tight as you can be over there.
Lock it, yeah. Well, that is
Captain?
looking good.
You got it? Dominic, we got it here. Keep me straight. We're gonna go to the other side. Hey, Rafa.
That's so much better than yesterday.
Yeah, and you can see the wind is more stronger than yesterday too, right?
I feel like it's moving just one unit now. Much better, much easier.
First lock to go down.
As soon as he is on the rollers, secure. Carry, stop. Keep backing, Dominic. Keep backing.
Pedro Miguel locks, there was an incident on 2 canoes when the advisor advised to secure the line to the cleat, and explains what happened.
Asked him, well, why are we securing the line? And he had said, because as the boat goes down, he wants the boat to move closer to the wall. And the front line was more slacked out so that we could move closer to the wall and back. So I thought, okay, that's fine. But then then the cleat made a big bang noise, and it was either the cleat or the rope around the cleat. I went and called for the advisor, and then it made another big noise when he was standing there. I was concerned that that cleat, they're not designed to have those pressures going up like that. And he said, no, it's fine. And then the rope broke.
Yes.
Ooh. We're really happy that the line broke rather than the cleat.
Ripping out of the boat.
Actually, on the St. Lawrence River, this happens quite often, and the boat will capsize sometimes if the cleat is strong. It'll just lift, and the boat goes on the side and breaks.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the locks that we just came out of, and you can see the gates closed from the lock that we came out of, and there's a boat going in on the other locks. And now we're about to go to the Miraflores Locks. Let's have a look. Do we have to wait, or are they open?
I'm gonna wait a little bit. We just go with the flow, Captain. Just go follow the flow.
I'm very excited.
Primero por este lado, estamos mandando eso por la velocidad de ellos. Así que simplemente tengo 3 de la tarde en excusa, nos están calculando todo en fase 5 horas, nos están calculando fase a los 3 horas y media. Así que igual hacemos las 8, pero vamos a salir, no movería pues, una permisión.
So there we are, the red boat. I don't know why it has Endless Joy behind us, because we are actually attached to Endless Joy. I feel like I'm gonna cry.
Here we go, the last lock, Miraflores, and then we in the Pacific.
We're in the Pacific and we're going on.
That's it. Let the journey go on. Here we go. El final.
Last locks. Killer, are you having fun? Okay, last big jump for line handlers. Last one. Last line! Killer! Under the Bridge of America.
Torre las Americas. So we have like 15 minutes.
Good job. We'll take care of the party and you just drive the boat.
And Taylor, you can take part of the party too.
Let's raise the fenders.
Okay.
says you have to run both engines flat out for 5 minutes every month.
Get it done.
It is good for your turbo. So
And the mixing elbows, you know, and all sorts of things.
yeah, so we're not doing anything wrong.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Bridge of the Americas, here we come.
The plan was to pop champagne exactly when we were under the bridge.
Hey! You want to do the honors in our video?
No.
Oh, come on.
Mia pushed the wrong button on the camera, but Gonzalo caught the action on his iPhone.
Let's repeat it. I will do the noise. No, 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 no,
Meanwhile, on Pum, they popped the cork at exactly the right time.
Wow, Panama City, here we come. Oh my God.
Bye. Thank you.
Flamenco Marina on the Pacific side.